So I want to look at this article, 12 lifestyle photography tips to get a candid look or an authentic look or natural look. I want to go through this article and also mix it in with my motto of taking images, which is CIAS. So color, make it interesting, have some story to it. Use lots of different angles, so looking up, looking down, going in close, coming out far away, and shooting through things or over things and having them blurred in the foreground. And then just shoot, so have lots of images that you can then choose from. Take lots of shots and then pick the best. So let's look at the first thing here, and it's anticipate what's going to happen. Now, to a certain extent you can do that, but the most important thing, I think, is to go somewhere where lots of things are happening. And an example of that is I went to Singapore and I went to Chinatown first of all, took lots of images, and then I went to the Indian area. And in the Indian area, you've got lots of colorful clothing, lots of colorful spices, and then lots of things happening, and the same in the Chinese area. If you look at these images here of the Chinese area in Singapore, then you can see lots of things are happening. And like this one, it's stuff that's unusual. You've got unusual things that are being sold here, and you can get some really good pictures. They say anticipate what's going to happen, and you definitely can do that to a certain extent, but also just take lots of shots so that you're sure to capture something that's interesting. So the second thing says keep changing your perspective. And this is where I say angles. You go in different angles. You get down and look up. You get up and look down and look through things. You might have, like in the market, you might have some things hanging up and you could shoot with those in the foreground and blurred and then have the focus on something that's happening beyond that. Here's an example of one of my shots. And I like to do them where you've got something in focus and then something in the background that's blurred. Or sometimes I'll move these flowers to the front. These are not actually natural flowers. It's a prop, just plastic ones actually. And you can put them behind, or you can move them in front and have them blurred as well. And that's just changing the angle, giving it a different perspective. So the third one is thinking stories. And for me, that is making it interesting. So have it interesting, have a story, and have the whole image tell a story. Let's look at an example here. And this image is really giving a story of somebody lonely, or somebody thinking, or maybe somebody sad. People can find these images really useful because they can use it for their blog or even for advertising. So the fourth one here is show your environment, and that's just having everything really in the picture that is adding to the story, not just the actual thing in focus, but also having the background adding to it. And what I've done here, I've looked at some pictures on Shutterstock. So you can see that a lot of these pictures actually tell a story, the whole story. And some of them, like here, you've got the picture in the foreground, which is people pulling on some cable, but the background tells the story as well. You've got a crane there, so you can see its construction. And the next one here, you've got items on the table, which is showing a story of somebody doing a project, maybe a building project. But then in the background, you've also got people working in the office, so that just adds to the story. Number 5 here is don't forget the details. And let's go back to that construction. And you can do things like this. So if you're doing for stock photography, you can go in close and just take here, you've got the hand and the bricks, but it tells a story just on its own. Another one here, you've got a hand, 2 people shaking hands, but you get the story because they've got gloves on, so it's construction. And also in the background, you've got a couple of guys with yellow hats. So it's showing that they've just made a building or had some success with construction. This next one says pay attention to details and the background. And that's kind of what we were just talking about, but I'll give you another example. So here's one that I did. So it's a picture of an orange with a straw in it to show thirst or show drinking. And you've got the sea in the background. And you can move these backgrounds around, so you can turn around to get a really good background. But what I actually did with this, I have several background images, and this wasn't done by the sea. This was just done in the room, and I've got a picture of the sea in the background. I had about 100 different background images, and there were A3 pictures that I'd taken myself, and I just swapped them around to give different backgrounds. So you can either move around to get a good background, or you can just make your own backgrounds. Number 7 is to get your family and friends involved. And I think a person in the image is really good because it adds some interest, and sometimes it also gives a scale to the picture. Let's look at these images here of the Rocky Mountains. And if there's no person in it, like this image here, then you don't really get an idea of how vast the area is. It looks like you've got mountains here, but you've got no idea how high they are. Whereas when you've got a person in it, like here, you can see that this mountain is really high. Or over here, you've got a person that's quite small, and you can see that it's a big drop to go down there. And the same here, you can just get an idea of the scale of it. And it also adds an interest. It's a focal point to the image. The next one here says, don't worry about chopping off heads. And I wouldn't really say that's a rule, but it's just telling me that you can do lots of things that are not normal. You don't have to take images at head height, just looking out quite wide angle. You can take pictures of shadows, or pictures of what someone's holding, or just going for other details or something unusual. And it's actually better in a lot of cases. This next one, number 9, says create visual interest. And they're saying that you can recompose if you like, and look for things that are interesting. In this image here, what they've done is kind of have it focusing on the middle here. They've blurred the foreground, which I like to do also, and it makes you look at the actual subject here. If it's a scene that's going to change quickly, then I think it's good to take a picture straight away and then compose the actual ideal shot and take more pictures. But if you don't get that initial picture, then you might have lost everything. So take a few pictures, then get in and compose your shot and take more pictures. Here you've got the Winter Olympics that are on at the moment, and you've got a really good image here because it shows 3 people and they're all concentrating on this curl, I think it's called, and they're all concentrating on it at the same time. Now, I imagine that they probably used a continuous shutter for this because it's unusual that you'll get that shot where they're exactly doing what you want them to do. They probably took maybe 100 shots and just picked the best ones to upload to this website. So the next one, think like an advertiser. And if we go back to this image, then what you might want to do if you took an image like this is to move the camera to the left a bit, and also have an image where you've got a big area here that can be used to add text. Another thing is to pick the right topics. So for advertising, it's quite common that people will want current news topics, current technology, and also other images where they can add their text. So the next one is number 11, and it's embrace the imperfect. And what they're saying here is don't be such a perfectionist. Don't always try and follow the rules of photography, like the rule of thirds, and just go ahead and take images and see what they look like. Now, this doesn't follow the typical rules because normally if somebody is looking in a certain direction, you should have a space in front of them. So this really should be the person over here looking into the empty space. What they've done this different. It's as though it's been cropped in the wrong place, but it makes it unusual. And because it's unusual, it makes it like it's an interesting image that most people wouldn't take. So the last one here is always have your camera at the ready. And I don't really think this is practical. I've got a DSLR and it's just too heavy to keep with me all the time. What I actually prefer is to go somewhere that a lot is happening and take all my images at the same time. I might go to somewhere like Bangkok and go into the markets and take images there. or joining a festival. And in those ways, you can have your camera at the ready for about 3 or 4 hours at a time, take loads and loads of images, and then choose the best from those. If you do want to have a camera that's always at the ready, then you're probably better to invest in one of the smaller shutterless cameras, which are pretty good quality or very good quality, and they're much lighter than the DSLRs. So those are 12 tips of taking candid photos. And I'll just remind you again of my motto, and it's CIAS. It's to have lots of color, to find stuff that's interesting, like telling a story, to get lots and lots of angles and then just pick the best, and to just keep shooting. Just as soon as you see something good, take a shot, take a few shots, then get in and find some better angles and take more and more shots.